This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
The Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone, the Cloak of Invisibility. Together they make the Deathly Hallows. Together they make one Master of Death. The last will and testament of Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore.
Do not pity the dead, Harry. Pity the living. And above all those who live without love.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hogwarts, a podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hogwarts, a podcast. Today we're covering Chapter 16, Godric's Hollow. Elizabeth is with us.
Hi everyone.
And before we get into the episode, I just wanted to note some changes that you might be seeing in the podcast going forward. We are almost at the halfway point of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows.
This is crazy.
Obviously, since we're halfway through the final book, there might not be a need anymore to do the spoiler section.
Spoiler alert, no more spoilers.
Yeah. So, at this point, when we're almost there anyway, we're going to forego the spoiler talk and just wait until we get there.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Sounds good to me.
That being said, we will continue to have the break sound and all that stuff surrounding it because we're probably going to chop up the actual chapter discussion into two parts, especially because as we get towards the stretch here, some of these chapters are really bulky and require a lot of dissection.
I mean, let's be real. Last week, it was a regular length chapter, but there was so much to talk about.
We do have a comment that does refer to some post-book activity and has some suggestions as to what we might be able to do post-book 7. The comment is from DGMZ12, and it's on Instagram, specifically on the Chapter 14, The Thief episode.
So recent.
Very recent. And this is a really long comment, which we love. Thank you very much for it. But we'll break it up a little bit.
Okay.
We'll break it up and we'll discuss as we go. And DG starts out with, I'm sorry, no. It's a great start. We're off to a great start.
Approve.
Oh, it gets better. I'm sorry, no. I agree with Julie. Great start, DG.
Julie's going to love that.
Julie's going to love it. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, no. I agree with Julie. I don't believe the orders were sent to join the order under request of the ministry. They joined the order because they believed in what it stood for. So, pause, and we'll tackle that comment, or that piece of the comment first. For the record, I was referring to the Ministry of Magic setting assets, orders, in this example.
Yeah.
To protect Harry.
Yeah.
Not sending orders to join the Order of the Phoenix.
I mean, that'd be like the government ordering their people to go become vigilantes. I don't think they'd approve of that.
Probably not.
Yeah.
So, just to clarify on that, I was referring to the Ministry of Magic allocating orders to the protection of Harry Potter, not to join the Order of the Phoenix. I agree with DG. The orders that did join the Order of the Phoenix, I believe, did so of their own free will because they believed in the cause.
Yeah.
I agree
100%.
with that part. Yeah. DG goes on to say, besides the quote-unquote help to protect the burrow, which was accepted with the suspicion that it was temporary because they knew the ministry would eventually fall, I don't remember any other time the ministry offered to help. Dumbledore offered the olive branch and they refused. It was only after Voldy returned that they wanted to work with Harry to save face more than anything. So there are two specific instances where they do allocate resources for the protection of Harry Potter. They do so in Prisoner of Azkaban when they believe Sirius Black is a mass murderer who's after Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So they send cars to take Harry Potter. They send cars and they send protection to take Harry from the Leaky Cauldron, Diagon Alley, to King's Cross Station.
Right. Because not only would it be a bad look if a child was murdered under their regime, it's also Harry Potter. He's kind of important. People kind of think of him as the one who lived. So,
and just for context purposes, we did talk in previous episodes about how the idea that Sirius Black is a mass murderer, given the evidence that they had, was fairly a reasonable deduction to make.
Yeah.
So, you could see how they can think that. Fair enough. Also, I would like to point out that was under Fudge that protection was set.
Right.
So Cornelius Fudge did allocate resources for the protection of Harry Potter. The second time is in The Half-Blood Prince, when they set a whole bunch of protections around Harry Potter and around Hogwarts.
Yeah, he was talking about bodyguards that he didn't even really want around him.
Yeah. People he didn't necessarily even recognize were set to protect him.
Yeah.
So that is a very clear example of the Ministry being like, no, we're going to protect Harry Potter. And all of the other kids and teachers and just Hogwarts as a whole.
Especially because at that point, he's the chosen one.
Right.
Got to keep him alive.
Sure. But still, they're allocating the resources for it. And that was under Rufus. So you have both Ministers of Magic that we're familiar with
protecting
Harry at different points in time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are examples of it. It's interesting that you put help in quotation marks. I think it's pretty clear that they needed the help of the Ministry and the Order of the Phoenix to establish those protections because they worked.
Yeah.
Voldy got stopped by the protections around the Tonks place. So, yes, they did help. I don't know why there's a question they didn't. So...
Well, maybe they can clarify their comment.
I mean, it worked. And I get the idea that the Ministry might fall, therefore they are temporary. I don't think the Order was hoping for that, though. I think the Order was hoping that Rufus was going to stay in power, because if he's not in power, that means...
Yeah, that's a problem.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
So I think the Order was fully intending and hoping...
I think, if anything, they were just also plan B, like, in case it does fall, here's what we'll do.
Right.
Because that's a smart thing to do.
Well, sure. DG continues with the comment, saying, why didn't Rufus join the Order and back Harry during Fudge's regime?
That probably would have felt really weird as the lead of the magical
law
enforcement to join a vigilante group.
Yeah, well, I mean, you still have Aurors doing it. But I think I said this on a previous episode, actually, where, in fairness to Rufus, we don't actually know that he was pro or anti-Harry during Fudge's regime. We just don't know. It is true he didn't join the Order. That being said, that doesn't mean he was antagonistic towards the Order.
Like, Flitwick is not in the Order, but he's obviously not pro-Voldemort, you know?
Yeah, just because you're not in the Order doesn't mean you're against the Order.
Yeah.
You can be working in tandem with the Order,
yeah,
which I think is what they were doing. They're like, okay, you're not part of us, but we need your help, you need our help, let's at least get by. I think they had a working relationship at the very best. But no, we don't specifically know under Fudge's administration if Rufus was pro or against it, how he felt allocating.
Well, also, like, the Order didn't really need to come back up during Fudge's organization until the very, very end.
Yeah, so we don't know how Rufus felt about allocating those orders to the protection of a 13-year-old at that time.
Yeah. He
might have been like, really? I'm sending some of my best people to watch a child? He could have been. That's a very plausible scenario. He could have also supported it. He could have even suggested the protection. We don't know that either. He could have been antagonistic towards it, being like, why am I sending resources to protect this child? He could have been, hey, we need to send resources to protect this child.
Yeah, we don't know either
We
way.
don't know one way or the other. Mm-hmm. And then, obviously, he takes over in book 6. But honestly, by the time he takes over, Fudge has already let that cat out of the bag. Like, it's already nearing the end at this point.
Yeah.
Too far gone. DG continues. Side note, this debate should be a full episode when the book is finished, or maybe even halfway. I will say we do have some plans to have some post-book episodes, and one of those episodes might be reactions.
Debate.
Some debates on my hot takes specifically. So that will be fun. But he has a suggestion for that episode.
Oh?
That debate should be a YouTube live event.
You're just looking for a fight here.
Yep. That debate should be a YouTube live event to allow comments from the audience.
He wants to see the literal claws come out.
Yep. I'm up for that. I would fully look into getting some way where we can react with you guys live.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
And having you guys comment live on things that we debate or talk about or whatever have you, I think that'd be a really cool experience. Mm-hmm. So if we can gather enough people who are interested in that, let's.
And if we can figure out how to set it all up.
And if we can figure out how to set it up. He has a couple of Umbridge comments to finish this out.
Okay.
Did Umbridge feel the beating/pulsing? The piece of soul was probably scared of Umbridge, referring to the locket she was wearing.
I don't know if Umbridge would have felt it. I feel like you'd have to be really, really focused and like quiet, and she was so in her element with torturing people at the moment that she probably didn't feel it. But I do like the idea that it's too scared of her.
He continues, Voldy wants to kill Harry, and Umbridge wants to torture Harry. Umbridge is the #1 villain in the Harry Potter universe.
Agreed.
One of the debates that I think we can have post-episode is, first of all, I'm not going to specifically dismiss the idea that Umbridge is the worst individual character. I'm not dismissing
She's
that.
the best written worst character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. No problem with that. I will still throw my hat in the ring for, if we're just giving each of these 3 characters a page to tell you how bad they are, Voldy, Umbridge, and Aunt Marge. Voldy might come in 3rd. Which is stunning. But anyway, we might get to that debate later after the first 2. If Umbridge would be made a Death Eater, her dark mark would probably be a cat chewing on a skull.
Okay, I love that, because that just speaks to my core.
No, I can totally see that. Voldy might not love that.
No, but that'd be amazing.
But yeah, I can see that. Thank you, DG, for the extensive comment.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. I know you disagreed with me on some things, but that's okay. We're here to talk about it and figure it all out.
And I like the image of a cat chewing on a skull.
Yeah. I also want to thank you for the suggestions of some post-book ideas, too. We're always looking for that. So, as always, everybody else who has a comment on anything we say or talk about, or the books in general, or the movies, or the soon-to-be HBO series.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to that.
All of those things. The Cursed Child, which we had a cool Cursed Child moment Elizabeth and I did.
Yeah, we went to see it.
We went to see it, but we also went to a Harry Potter pop-up bar here in Chicago.
Yeah.
If you've been on our Instagram, you'll have seen that we went to the Harry Potter pop-up.
Dan may or may not have gotten very excited about the menu.
The menu was awesome. It was all Harry Potter themed. Drinks, food even had Harry Potter names.
Yeah, it had some alcoholic butterbeer.
Yep, and some non-alcoholic butterbeer. It had a little bit of everything for everyone. Mm-hmm. But we did that, but we also did an escape room. Mm-hmm. And when we were at the escape room...
Not Harry Potter themed.
The escape room was not Harry Potter themed, although they do have a Wizard Trials escape room there.
Yeah.
It's just not Harry Potter specific. Yeah. But we went to this escape room in Chicago, and we noticed that the first 2 names on a record board were Harry Potter related. They were names of Aloha Mora and Coloportus. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, those are Harry Potter themed. And then the guy working at the escape room was like, "Oh yeah, the cast of Cursed Child in Chicago came by and
so cool.
and they competed in teams against each other."
We would have been so excited.
Oh, we would
had
have been through
there.
the roof.
It's unfortunate timing. We weren't there at the exact same time.
Oh, it was great. They're obviously very good at escape rooms.
Yeah, they were.
Those times were fantastic that they put up in a very difficult room. That being said, if you have any of those types of comments on any of those things, please let us know by commenting on our socials, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, anything else we come up with in the year 2025. You could probably find most of it at Hogwarts a Pod if you search it. You could also leave the comment on Spotify. You can participate in those polls that we put up on Spotify because we're going to use those as post-book episodes. So we love hearing from all of you. Thank you for giving us that feedback. Thank you for interacting. Elizabeth, we have a chapter to actually discuss.
Yeah, let's get to it.
So, obviously the chapter title is Godric's Hollow. Spoiler alert, they go to Godric's Hollow in this chapter. But not before some interesting conversation happens with the remaining two of the trio.
Yeah, because remember, we're leaving at a very emotional spot where Ron has left us.
The beginning of this chapter deals and addresses a lot of the fallout of Ron's departure. And the prevailing vibe in the tent is awkward.
Super awkward.
It's really awkward between Harry and Hermione.
I mean, like, neither of them are wanting to talk to each other because I feel like talking to each other acknowledges the fact that not only is Ron gone, but the moment we move, he cannot come back.
Harry notes it's like a bad dream.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing that happened, like he woke up and was like, please, that didn't happen. That didn't actually happen.
Well, especially since it seemed to come out of nowhere and it was so intense and extreme. And it was just like, Ron, calm down.
Yeah. But now there's an awkward silence between the two, and Hermione won't even look at him.
Yeah.
Again, awkward. Like, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
And you know exactly why it is, and
you know it's not anything you did, but at the same time, there's nothing you can say to make it better.
Yeah. They both try to delay their departure. Hermione more than Harry, but they both try to delay the departure from this location because they know with all of the protective enchantments, once they leave this spot, it'll be extraordinarily difficult, possibly impossible, for Ron to then find them again.
Yeah, they were hoping that Ron would, like, change his mind, grow up, and come back, but clearly that has not happened, even though Hermione repacked her bag 3 times.
Yep. But they do eventually depart, and when they depart this specific location and arrive at their new location, Hermione just goes and sits in the middle with her bag and the tent, and Harry ends up having to go and do all of the protective enchantments and spells.
Because she's just crying.
Yeah.
It makes me feel so bad for her.
I do want to just note that, I mean, they've been on the run for over a month now, and they've probably had Hermione doing the spells every time they've changed locations.
Yeah.
But I just want to note that Harry's doing the protective enchantments.
Also capable of them.
He's capable of doing them. He just has to know them. But once he's seen Hermione do it probably a half dozen times, he's able to do it. So just want to give Harry some love. But over the next few days, they obviously continue to avoid talking about Ron. They do spend a lot of their time discussing the Sword of Godric Gryffindor.
I do enjoy the fact that Harry mentioned, like, he starts to bring out the Marauders map more because he's thinking that Ron is just going to show up at Hogwarts and be like, oh, guess what? I'm cured. I'm back. Here we go. And that would be at least confirmation where Ron is and that he's not coming back. But he said Ron's name doesn't show up, but instead he's just staring at Ginny's name, which I think is cute. Yep.
So the Sword of Godric Gryffindor talk, which is essentially after all of the excitement of them figuring out that the Sword of Godric Gryffindor is clearly where they need to go.
Yeah, we need this thing.
We need this. They run into what, honestly, Ron brought up initially to kick off the whole massive blowout argument of, it's another thing we have to find, and we're as close to finding that as anything else. Like, that's still a problem. And they're running into dead end after dead end after dead end trying to figure this out. And Harry starts thinking, like, man, who am I more angry at? Ron for leaving and saying all the stuff that he did, which I obviously took exception to.
Yeah.
Or Dumbledore, who left me clearly rudderless and without any sort of direction to go in.
And with the anger, there's also an extra layer of fear that Hermione is going to eventually leave him too, because, again, he doesn't know anything else to bring to the table.
There's an interesting note with that, where, he's offered them multiple chances to just not come with or to leave, and they've said no. Now, however, when it's not him making the decision, and Ron just up and leaves, and Hermione might decide to leave.
Yeah.
Now it's like, oh no, I don't want that.
Yeah, like I realize how screwed I would be if you guys aren't there.
Not just that, but I think part of them is like, I need to be the one to make that call. If other people are abandoning me, that sends me into more of a depressed, anxious
Well, in
state.
general, it'd be depressing because it's like people need people,
Yes, but it's just interesting to note the tone change of like, he's telling them confidently, like, you guys don't have to come with me.
Well, the one it's like, I want to keep you protected and safe, versus if you leave me,
I'm alone.
And I'm not safe. I don't know how to do this. I'm over my head.
But not only that, you've left me.
Yeah.
So I'm confident in telling you, you don't need to come. Stay safe. I'll put myself in danger. That's what Harry feels comfortable in.
Because he's got that hero complex.
Sure. But when people leave him, he now doubts himself.
Yeah.
He needs that self-confidence to go forward. When people start leaving him, he thinks it's because he's not a good leader or he's failing them. Now he's not in a good headspace.
Which, remember, is all amplified by the Horcrux.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I do have a question for you based on Harry's debates inside his own head. Who should he be angrier at? Albus or Ron? I think we have a poll for the episode already. Who should he be angrier at? Albus or Ron?
I mean, the reason why he's angry at Ron is fairly obvious. You're my friend, and you've betrayed me by abandoning me. The anger at Dumbledore is all because I don't know what I'm doing, and you haven't left me with enough information to be successful. I would say be angrier at Ron.
Why?
Dumbledore might not have known all the information that could make Harry be successful, and we could assume that everything that he has told him was what he knew. And I mean, like, he has flat out been like, okay, there's a certain amount of Horcruxes to search out. Here's how you destroy them. Which, granted, I know it took a little bit of extra work to figure that out, but we figured it out. We know what we're specifically looking for. We have general thoughts of where they might be based on the memories that we saw. So Dumbledore didn't leave him with absolutely nothing, which Ron was aware of, and Ron did make the promise to stay, and Ron knows that it's not Harry's fault that he doesn't know more. So Ron choosing to leave does feel like more of a knife into their friendship, I think.
I agree with you. I think he should be angrier at Ron, which should be evident given how I reacted in the chapter of them leaving. Yes, Dumbledore did give Harry some tools. I think he failed in giving him enough. Dumbledore could have done better.
It's like right now, instead of having maybe 90% of the plan, he's at like 60%.
But some pretty important 60%. I agree with you that Dumbledore himself might not have known all the answers. So it's hard to then tell somebody the answers when you yourself don't know them.
You don't want to set Harry down the wrong path, too, and waste time.
At the very least, you should have told him, like, hey, this is how you get rid of him. At the very least, at least that. After that, though, I think Dumbledore's exhausted the knowledge that he could then pass on, really.
Yeah, because, I mean, like, imagine if it was, like, oh, Harry, you're supposed to find the cave by yourself. Like, how would Harry have ever been capable of doing that? The locations that, like, would be more difficult for Harry to get to, like the Gaunt House or the cave, have been taken care of.
Well, I think it's not so much finding the cave. I think they could have actually found the cave. What I think they would have struggled with is all of the
extra magic.
All of the insane level of magic
Yeah.
that is within said cave.
Yeah.
That's a difficult
So it's kind of like Dumbledore has knocked out the hardest ones first, because we don't know what kind of enchantments the Gaunt House had.
That's true.
But it is still like, okay, if we assume Hogwarts is a location, where in Hogwarts? You've attended there for 6 years and you never came across anything that could resemble a Horcrux as far as we know. So where do you look? And also, how do you get in? The place is... It has Death Eaters teaching there now. Like, good luck.
But the reason I think Ron is the person who Harry should be angrier with is because he... And we'll get into his connection with Dumbledore a little bit later. Mm-hmm. But Ron, he feels as though Ron is like, not just a friend.
He's
not
a
just
brother.
even a best friend.
He's
like,
a brother.
Like a brother.
Yeah.
Like, they are so connected. And it's a betrayal of abandonment. Like, to have that kind of close of a connection and be stung by it, that hurts.
And this isn't the first time that they've had this kind of a fallout.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is obviously more extreme than in
Sure.
book 4, but, like, if you have that extreme of a fight in book 4, and you know what it felt like to not have the other around... That sucks. So you would think in all future conflicts, like, the main goal would be to stay together as long as possible. But not this time.
Nope. So, again, they're spending many evenings in silence. And it's awkward, and it's maybe even a little painful just to be in the tent. So Hermione has taken to keeping the portrait of Phineas Nigellus out and props it up in the tent. And Phineas would come by and visit every few days or so. And you get some interesting information. Some of the information that they get from Phineas is, one, just for our purposes here at this podcast, Snape is the first Slytherin headmaster since Phineas himself. Mm-hmm. So that's roughly 100 years between...
Which is kind of surprising to think about. I mean, like, all 4 founding members, obviously, if we're from the 4 houses, you would think that there'd be some kind of balance throughout the years.
Well, I suppose time is a factor. So you figure Dumbledore's been the headmaster for a while. A minute.
True.
So that's a chunk of years.
Hogwarts Legacy, you said, is about 100 years
Give
prior?
or take, yeah.
Okay, so that could be like...
So, I mean, if Dumbledore's been the headmaster for a healthy chunk...
And before him was Dippet.
Like, we're talking like 40 years he's had to at least been the minister, or the headmaster.
Right. And before him was Dippet, right?
Dippet.
So, in theory...
There might have been only 3 headmasters.
Yeah, I guess that's less extreme.
But still.
Yeah.
It's an interesting little fact that Snape is the first Slytherin headmaster.
Well, certainly Phineas. A note of pride for Phineas, so he doesn't want to hear any bad talk against Snape.
Snape, however, is facing some mutiny from the students. Ginny has particularly been banned from Hogsmeade. And Snape has also reinstituted an Umbridge-era rule where groups of 3 or more are now restricted, banned.
Which, reading between the lines, Harry just assumes, like, oh, yeah, Dumbledore's army have been trying to come back together again.
It's a safe bet. Mm-hmm. However, the 3 or more thing, I think, is not good enough. Because if you think about it, all you really need is... 2 of them are Gryffindors.
I mean, all
so what are you going to do? Like, walk into their, like...
Just, like, them hanging out by the fireplace talking to be like, this breaks the rules.
You could pull an Umbridge and, like, spy on them through the fireplace.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a thing you could do.
What a waste of your time, though.
Well, he could set the Caros on it. Hey, Caro. Hey, Electo. Spend a couple hours in the fireplace.
Oh, my gosh.
Anyway.
Phineas, though, he keeps trying to poke around a little bit. He wants to know where Harry's located, and they're like, absolutely not. Go back in the bag.
Harry desperately wants to join Ginny's resistance at Hogwarts.
Makes sense.
And he wants to return to a familiar home, essentially. You know, he wants that shelter. He wants that protection. He wants the food. He wants someone else to make the decisions for him.
He doesn't want to be in charge anymore.
Which,
all the weight of the world is on his shoulders right now, and that's a lot.
But if I'm being honest with Harry here for a second, if you went back to Hogwarts and you went to Ginny's resistance, I'm sorry, you would then become the leader of that resistance. They would make you that leader again.
Yeah.
Like, Ginny's not going to...
But you would have more people surrounding you, I suppose.
I guess.
And it's familiar
people
territory.
Would still look to you, though.
And you have a seen enemy with Snape, as opposed to just a, like, who knows where he is, what he's doing.
Do you think he also reinstituted the Inquisitorial Squad? Well, we're...
Just imagine Snape being like, gosh darn it, I'm having to do Umbridge policies. That makes me want to vomit in my mouth.
Do you think he gets annoyed by reports by Filch? He must be. Because Filch is probably so over the moon happy.
Well, that's what I said a few episodes ago, that like the idea that, oh, maybe I can chain them up again, just like how I used to with Umbridge.
Yeah. I can imagine Snape would be like, I just don't want to hear from you, Filch. I'm sorry.
Filch, just do whatever the heck you want.
I just...
Yay!
Don't want to hear it. Yeah, maybe. Harry and Hermione continue to bounce around the country as cold sweeps in. We're getting into the later stretches of fall, maybe even into winter.
Probably in December now.
But they keep bouncing around different locations like mountainsides, marshes, even a Scottish island.
Yeah.
But obviously they're being pelted by sleet and snow and all kinds of different weather hazards.
So in terms of prolonged camping trip, to use Julie's terminology...
It's been like 3 chapters.
It's that, but it's also been from like early October now through December. 3 months.
Yeah, it's about 3 months. 3 chapters of the book, I think, has been really primarily devoted to it. Mm-hmm. There have been, obviously, some things that have happened along the way that makes you forget the fact that they're just spending endless hours in a tent. That being said, I will give Julie's critique some credence in that, while I don't think it's endless camping trip as far as the book is concerned, I think if you go to like the HBO show format,
the movie,
to do this correctly, it does kind of have to end up being like a prolonged
You'd have
camping
to
trip.
have a montage of them going to one location, setting up, taking down the tent, to another location, setting up, take down the tent.
Would you want that?
I think so, because I feel like that...
Or would you want added scenes of them going to different locations, like scouting out the orphanage, or like going to different locations failing?
I think you need both. Because I think the purpose of them of her being like, we went to this location, to this location, to this location, is really to amplify how lost they are and how, like, impossible it seems to be solving this mystery.
So you would say that in a live-action version of this story, you do need to drag out the camping.
Yes. Although I think there are ways to do it. I think, like, the orphanage, you could have, sure, a whole scene of that, but that could be, like, I don't know, 5 minutes or so, if even that. I think the going from location to location to location to location, I'm imagining just like a montage of fading in and out of each other of location, and you can almost see like the trees starting to turn colors and then lose their leaves, and then there's snow on the ground, and there's mountains, and then there's hills, and then there's water, and just to really hone on the idea that, like, yeah, we're just surviving here. We're not accomplishing, but it's because we're so lost. I think it's a good visual.
Well, we have a while to go before HBO has to make that creative call.
Yeah.
However, I am making the creative call to pause right here. We'll have a break sound. We'll take a little break, and then we will be back with the other half of this chapter, which does feature, believe it or not, Godric's Hollow.
Woo!
Before we get to our break sound, I'd like to acknowledge our friend Andy, who helps us produce our intros and our break sounds. If you want to hear more of Andy's work and like Formula One racing, check out the Outlap F1 podcast. It's your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. You can find them wherever you listen to podcasts, and they even have a YouTube page. So check out Andy, Cody, John, James, and Deanna, and join them on the Outlap.
Dobby has.
Your neighborhood just got cooler with Kroger Delivery's refrigerated trucks. Simply order groceries at the same great prices online as in-store, and we'll bring them to you fresh every time. And if that wasn't cool enough, you can now earn 4 times the fuel points after 4 with your digital coupon. Choose a next-day Kroger delivery time slot for 4 p.m. or later on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Must deliver by February 4th. Restrictions apply. See Kroger.com for details.
No, master. Dobby is a free elf.
All right, so we are back with part 2 of Chapter 16, Godric's Hollow. In this part, we will actually get to Godric's Hollow. But first, we get Hermione poring over the tales of Beetle the Bard.
That's certainly one way to fill the silence, is just read.
Yeah, could you imagine having to read children's stories on repeat for forever? Because Harry mentions, like, they're not even that long.
Yeah,
They're
and he's
short.
like, she's read it so many times. What else can she get out of it at this point?
But apparently she has gleaned something. Mm-hmm. She asks Harry, like, hey, Harry, do you recognize this by any chance? And it seems inked in, like it's added to the book. It's not from the original print.
Yeah, and she was like looking in her book of runes, and she's like, that's not a rune. This doesn't seem to be any kind of symbol in particular.
But Harry recognizes it as what Mr. Lovegood was wearing at the wedding. He recounts the story that Crumb told him and says, oh, if that's the symbol, it's Grindelwald's mark.
Which Hermione does say that's weird because of all the things she's ever read about Grindelwald, which let's just assume is everything you possibly could, nothing ever mentioned him having a specific symbol.
Right. I would imagine it's something Grindelwald wanted to... So the vibe I get from Lovegood, and the vibe I get from what I know of Grindelwald, is it's something that if you know, you know. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know, I'm not advertising it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's literally the vibe.
Yeah.
So, no, it probably wouldn't be a super advertised thing about Grindelwald. Even though Grindelwald himself seemed to advertise it in the halls of Durmstrang, because he apparently carved it into a wall. But anyway.
It is interesting that she said that the symbol is inked in, so the assumption would be that Dumbledore made that addition.
They do have a little mini debate about why the Ministry could have... Like, how could the Ministry have missed this? Mm-hmm. And... Because
Harry said it looks like an eye. Like an actual eyeball kind of a thing.
Yes. It looks like an eye with a line through the pupil. Mm-hmm. But they think about it like, wow, how could the Ministry have missed this inked-in symbol that's clearly not part of the actual book? And
if it was associated with Grindelwald as a dark mark, you would think that, like, they would see it, you know?
So I have 2 theories on this. Mm-hmm. One, either they don't particularly specifically know that it's Grindelwald's mark, because if he originated from a different country and he was advertising in a different country, they themselves might not be fully aware of that, because if Hermione read presumably everything there is to read on Gellert Grindelwald and she hasn't come by it, maybe it's just not a thing that's publicly known. But the other thing is, some people might have noticed that it is a specific symbol. My point of contention would be if it's specifically tied to a children's tale, a fairy tale, they might have noticed it, and they might have discarded it as...
Like absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Like they could just not put any belief into it.
You could see it as like...
You know what I mean?
If we had the story of Snow White and at the top of the page there was a picture of an apple and someone doodled in like the poison skull on top of the apple. You'd be like, oh, they're just adding to the decoration. Like, it's not necessarily a big deal, especially since it like invokes plot points in the story.
I mean, if people like Xenophilius Lovegood, editor of The Quibbler, was wearing this symbol around prominently, people could just be like, oh, this is just some nutcase.
Yeah.
Like some conspiracy theorist nutcase that isn't very serious.
Yeah.
So we're not serious about it. Because
Yeah.
the ministry, for whatever you want to call them, are generally serious people.
And I would think in that month that Rufus was poring over everything, I mean, I would be looking for letters underlined or bolded as like some kind of code to Hermione.
Well, I'm sure that,
that kind of stuff. I wouldn't necessarily
maybe.
see like one little symbol and be like, okay, this means everything.
Possibly. I mean, I would assume they like combed it with all kinds of charms and enchantments to see if there's anything magically designated, because I mean that would surely be
because a book would be the place where you'd pass along some kind of secret message.
Well, yeah, but I mean, surely being wizards in the wizarding world, your first run through has got to be just magically.
Yeah.
Like you're cleansing this thing of any possible enchantments on the book itself.
Yeah.
Seeing if anything magically has been done to this thing.
And once you see there's nothing there, then it would be, okay, I'm going to pour over every letter. Are there any words that are specifically misspelled? Are there bolded or underlined
Spell out
things?
actual spell names or enchantments.
Yeah, like those types of things.
Sure.
And clearly not the case.
So I will go out on a limb and say that they 100% noticed it. Personally, I don't believe they took it all that seriously.
Yeah, because it's a mark.
It's a symbol in a children's tale, and I don't know that they take the people that wear those symbols all that seriously.
Yeah.
But we could get into that more in future chapters. Mm-hmm. Because Hermione does get a little fixated on the symbol. She's like, this has to be something. This has to be something. But anyway, Harry's like, you know what? You're well fed. We actually got some good food from the supermarket. And while we're eating, maybe just put the Horcrux on the bedpost for like a couple of hours, so we're just like able to just chill.
I love him buttering her up, just like let's arrange the circumstances as best I can.
Smart. It's
It is very
clever.
smart, but especially because he's like, it reminds him of asking McGonagall for permission to go to Hogsmeade. It's like, I need to do this to Hermione. How do I arrange the circumstances to get me the best outcome?
It's smart. I mean, to be well-fed, obviously they figured out being well-fed puts you in a good mood. Mm-hmm. And then being free of the locket just gives you a sense of freedom and easiness about you. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a smart strategy by Harry, which works because Hermione's like, yeah, I think we need to go. I really think the sword will be there. Yeah. And Harry's like, I'm sorry, sword?
Well, the thing that he wants to ask her is like, can we please go to Godric's Hollow? And yeah, her logic is like, yeah, the sword, it would make sense as that's the place that Dumbledore would leave it. He's like, whoa, I don't know what you're talking about here.
Harry, bless him. I just said he was brilliant on his strategy to convince Hermione to go to Godric's Hollow. The child does not know that Gryffindor was born in... He doesn't know that Godric was born in Godric's
Which,
Hollow.
Come on, Harry, you're a Gryffindor. You would think you would know this.
This is really bad. Because Harry is so completely ignorant of such a stupid, obvious fact, they actually start to smile a little bit.
Yeah. I'm like, Harry.
And they return to a little bit of sense of normalcy between them of like, come on.
She was also like, Harry, did you ever in your 6 years of education open your history of magic textbook? He's like, maybe once. Like, come on.
Which, side tangent here for just a second. How do you not? If you're a kid that's never been in the magical world, I get it if Ron never opened his history magic.
Yeah,
totally understand that.
because that's just been his life.
But Harry...
I'd want to know, like, how magic has been hidden this entire time. And everything that I saw from the Muggle perspective, what was the wizarding side of that?
I truthfully
It'd
don't
be
understand.
fascinating.
I truthfully don't understand why he never actually really read that book.
Yeah.
I get that the class might have been less than...
Binns was not the most engaging of professors.
The class was less than ideal. I understand that. But just generally, for your own curiosity, I would pour through that thing.
We know he opened it when he named Hedwig. And that was about it.
It's a really...
it was a funny moment.
It's a funny moment between the two of them, and it starts to get, again, a sense of normalcy between them, of their old relationship, pre Ron deserting.
Yeah.
Hermione actually goes and gets her copy of A History of Magic and goes to the point where wizards form their own communities after going into hiding in the year 1689. This is in relation to the Statute of Secrecy. Mm-hmm. So the towns that are formed, or at least the main ones, are Tinworth, which is near Cornwall, Upper Flagley, which is near Yorkshire. Yorkshire.
Your guess is better than
my
mine.
Listeners in the UK will correct me on my pronunciations. I apologize. And then Ottery St. Catchpole in the south of England. And then obviously we get Godric's Hollow, which is, she just refers to, is in the West Country. Mm-hmm. Obviously it's where Godric Gryffindor was born. The first golden snitch was forged here. Yeah, which again... by
Bowman Wright.
For someone who's so into Quidditch...
He's read the Quidditch through the ages, like, a million times. You would think the history of Quidditch would have, like, stuck out to him just a little bit.
Yep. And then, obviously, it's also known for a particularly prominent graveyard because of all the prominent people that have lived.
Yeah. And she said, like, the Potters aren't obviously...
Bagshot covers everything prior to the 19th century.
Yeah.
She doesn't cover anything after the 19th century.
Yeah. But Harry was remembering from the Weasley wedding, he was like, oh, wait. Bathilda Bagshot still lives there. So... don't you think, like, she could have Gryffindor's sword and then, like, we're meant to go there? And he's very much, like, taking Hermione's logic as a, like, this is extra proof that this is the thing and this is what we're supposed to do.
He's fluffing her up for sure.
Yeah.
But
it does make sense. It's like, we haven't tried it yet, and there's no other alley for us to try right now.
Harry obviously has other reasons for going to Godric's Hollow than the sword. He obviously wants to visit his parents' graves. Mm-hmm. He wants to visit the old house, potentially. Mm-hmm. And he wants to visit Bagshot. Hermione, however, is like, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this...
we got to be smart.
...really, really well.
Yeah.
So she wants all the disguises. She wants the invisibility cloak. She wants disillusionment charms. She wants polyjuice. She wants the whole thing.
I'm a little surprised that they haven't already been disapparating under the invisibility cloak. That just seems like a super obvious thing to do. I guess it was too difficult when they had 3 of them, but like 2 of them together, if you don't want to ever risk being seen, then yeah, leave under the invisibility cloak, arrive under the invisibility cloak.
It's a fair point.
It's just smart.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
It takes him a week to practice it and to steal some hairs from muggles who are doing some Christmas shopping in order for her to be like, okay, we can do this now.
Harry goes off into this like little inner monologue where he thinks of the life that wasn't, that he could have had in Godric's Hollow.
It's really sad.
It is really sad.
Especially when they finally do arrive and he realizes this is Christmas Eve. It's like he's home for the holidays.
Yeah, it's a full week. They prepped for a full week before going. Harry was like, we can go tomorrow morning. And Hermione's like, no, we need a full week of prep.
Yeah.
So they arrive in a snow-filled village. Harry is wearing the locket, which, again...
Why?
And I don't know why Hermione would even allow this, because she thinks Hermione is a very big proponent of there's danger here. Mm-hmm. So why would you have your strongest...
Yeah, imagine if there were Dementors.
You have your strongest combatant, Harry, who's the best with protective and offensive charms and enchantments and spells, wearing the thing that limits your effectiveness. Mm-hmm. Hermione should be wearing this locket right now.
I would also say just don't have either of them wear it right now. Keep it in somebody's pocket.
I don't think Harry's going to allow it to be in just something.
At least for just a few hours. Like, keep it in your pocket or your sock
Hermione
or something.
Needs to be wearing it.
Like,
you should not have your best duelist, for lack of a better term, wearing the thing that inhibits your abilities.
Especially if we think it's a trap. And since we know this is a piece of Voldemort's soul, you would think, like, if this is a trap and we're going towards a trap...
I'm not saying Hermione's not competent. She's obviously very competent. But, I mean, come on!
Yeah. No, it's a stupid choice. I don't know why they do it.
Harry asks to remove the cloak, since they're using Polyjuice Potion anyway.
Well, that and it's snowy on the ground, so if we are going to walk under the invisibility cloak, people are going to freak because there are footprints. We have to erase them.
Well, Hermione was going to erase them, but Harry's like, I just want to enter my hometown not invisible. Like, I want to be here. I don't want to be like...
I want to exist the same way the town exists, and my parents' graves exist.
Hermione is the one that deduces it is Christmas Eve due to the carols being sung in a nearby church. They begin to move across the town square to the graveyard next to the church, and they come across what seems to be a war memorial. However, as they get near the war memorial, it transforms from an obelisk covered in many names to a statue of 3 people: James, Lily, and a baby boy in his mother's arms.
It's so cute. Honestly, it made me cry. Like, the fact that this is there representing a family that has been pulled apart and broken from all the horrors of Voldemort, but just to see them in that happy little moment covered in snow is like...
Well, this knocks Harry back a bit, because he's like, I never envisioned myself in stone, or as in
that
statue.
They would put this here. Like
I never thought I would see myself in this form or fashion, and also without a scar on my forehead.
Yeah. And it's also, you think every statue out there, you think okay, this was a really important person, or this was representative of some horrific thing. And it's we know it was a horrific moment. We know that the Wizarding World was affected by it, but to still see stone images of that and being this is representative of the pain that I went through and the entire Wizarding World went through. It's intense.
Yeah, obviously people felt strongly enough about the event that took place there, number one, the results of said event, and how they viewed, at the very least, James and Lily, because they thought enough of them to memorialize them.
And it's also just interesting to me that Harry has never been made aware that this exists.
I mean, we have a lot to discuss about Godric Hollow still, but it is stunning that Harry questions why Dumbledore never brought him here. Mm-hmm. I have reasons for that, I think. It boggles my mind that Sirius or Lupin or Arthur or Molly
the Weasleys could have taken him.
Never took him here.
Yeah.
Boggles my mind. He's like, oh, Albus and I have a shared history in this place. I'm sorry, so do you, Lupin and Sirius. Mm-hmm. Lupin and Sirius knew your parents a lot longer than you did.
And Molly and Arthur being parents, you would think they'd be for Harry to make him feel that love, bring him to his home.
Why would Sirius not bring him here?
Yeah.
Sirius is the person you want to go see.
I guess the one thing you could argue would be 3rd year, obviously, he's on the run. 4th year, same thing. 5th year, he's
a dog, and no one knows he's a dog.
Yeah. But, I mean, Malfoy knew, and that led to a whole can of worms.
Godric's Hollow.
But, you would think it'd just be a day trip. It'd be easy.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that you should probably have done. Anyway.
Yeah.
We eventually get to the graveyard. And they start noticing that they spot some familiar names amongst the graves. Harry spots an Abbott grave and thinks it might be a possible relation to Hannah. We get a Hannah Abbott mention, which is just random, but great. Mm-hmm. Hermione finds the tombstones of Kendra Dumbledore and her daughter, Ariana. And there's a quote underneath the names, and the quote is, "Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also."
Which gave Harry 2 feelings of this is betrayal by Dumbledore, because here's physical proof that he once existed here, and again, never told me about it.
Has a history here.
Never told me about it. And then he also didn't seem to understand the meaning of the epithet. Just where your treasure is, there will be your heart also. He's that's a weird thing. Dumbledore surely must have picked it. Why? I don't know.
So I looked up the quote. It's actually a Bible verse that's found in the Gospels, specifically. I think I found it in Matthew specifically. But the idea behind the verse, from what I read, is the idea that if your treasures are somewhere... The Bible quote is specifically pointing to heaven. If your treasure is in heaven, it can't be taken from you, it can't be stolen from you, it can't be diminished or lessened in any way.
So if you consider your family your treasure, then your heart will be reunited with them in heaven.
I would assume it's something along those lines, but that's essentially what the quote is and where it's from. Hermione also notices another grave, this one particularly old, and all she can make out is the name Ignotus and a familiar triangular symbol.
Yeah, which if you look at the Latin translation of Ignotus, basically means unknown, which is very fitting because this is an unknown grave with an unknown symbol that keeps popping up.
But Hermione's like, this is the symbol, right? Like, Harry, this is...
Like, we should be focused on this. Like, this is fascinating.
This is a thing,
This is important. And Harry's like, I don't care. He
is so annoyed that she keeps calling him over for anybody other than his parents.
Which is fair, I think.
I get it. But he's specifically upset at seeing Dumbledore's family.
Yeah.
And then he's annoyed at the Ignotus. And he was like, yeah, I guess the symbol's vaguely familiar, whatever, cool. And then walks away.
Like, I just want to find my parents' place, which...
Hermione also finds. And we get James Potter, born March 27th, 1960. Died October 31st, 1981, 21 years old. Lily Potter, born January 30th, 1960. She's older than James. Obviously died the same date. And there's a quote underneath their names. The last enemy that shall be destroyed is death.
So, a few things. One, their graves are made of white marble tombstone, which invokes the image of Dumbledore's grave. The tombs are 2 rows behind the Dumbledore, so it kind of surprises me that they didn't see it. Because to me, white marble would shine amongst a snowy night.
Could be in some shadows. Obviously, there's a lot of snow on the ground.
The fact that they're so young, like
21.
We know that, and we've known that this entire time, and yet it still just hits you. It's just like they were children. They were essentially kids.
They were just starting out.
Yeah,
really on the adventure that is life.
I mean, like.
Taken far too soon.
I know we're super old being in our mid-30s, but the idea of like my life ending at 21, I didn't even start teaching yet until 22. So my entire career, like any of that would have just never existed. It's so sad to think that was their life.
Their lives are a little different in that their schooling ends at 17. I mean,
and being an adult is
their
17.
base form 17. So I mean, like, I don't know if they went into any particularly extra education or training, but I mean, essentially, they were adults at 17.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think like, gave birth at 20 and have a kid for a year, and you're ready to start your whole life, and you have a house and all these things that nowadays in this economy are really hard to do. But it's such a touching moment to finally see their graves and be like, that's my parents. And their bones are right underneath my feet. And they existed as real people.
It's definitely a moment for Harry. And I think us as readers who are so attached to the character of Harry Potter feel this moment with him, I think. It's obviously a very poignant moment. Harry, however, is initially confused.
I'd say even a little freaked out.
He thinks the quote, and I'll say it again, the quote is, the last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. Harry thinks, wait, isn't that a Death Eater belief? Why is that on my parents' graves? Hermione disagrees. She's like, I get where you're thinking. Like, I know what you're thinking and why. However, I think it more refers to the idea of life after death.
Yeah, like you can find each other after this world and be with each other in the next.
You're not trying to defeat death. You're trying to live after it.
Yeah.
So, which is another religious
thought. Yeah.
Spoiler alert, the quote is also can be found in the Bible. Mm-hmm. I found it in Corinthians specifically. So there are some tinges of religion here again. So this book is laying it on a little thick here recently with some of the religious notes and tendencies.
And death. A lot about death.
Well, it's mostly, in relation to death.
Yeah.
After hearing Hermione's explanation, he thinks, well, they're not living. Yeah. They're gone.
They're gone. I'll never get them back. And here they're completely unaware that their adult son is standing here above their graves.
That the protections she put in place worked.
Yeah, his life is here.
And with those thoughts, tears find Harry.
Which also made me cry. I cry a lot in this book.
He couldn't stop them from coming. And he felt, the blazing hot feeling of tears and then them immediately freezing on his cheeks. Yeah. But then more tears just come.
Which makes sense because it's here's your whole world that was stolen from you.
Well, he says he was close to wishing he lay beneath the snow with them, mm-hmm. which is a fairly dark comment.
But it also makes sense. It's you want to be with your parents. You want to feel their embrace again, and that's the only way you'd be able to do it.
You can be laying underneath the snow with them, but you ain't feeling an embrace. But anyway.
I love what Hermione does.
Hermione ends up grasping his hand, and then with her wand, creates a wreath of Christmas roses, mm-hmm. which Harry then lays at the grave.
She's so good at reading him without him needing to voice what he wants.
I think this is just a general moment of respect. Hermione realizes what this is for Harry.
Yeah.
This is a big moment for him in his life that he's never had before, again, inexplicably. Mm-hmm. And she recognizes the need to commemorate this moment for him. And she does it spectacularly.
Which does make me wonder, had Ron been here, would it have had the same impact that it does with him gone?
No.
I agree. I feel like it would have been cheapened. The emotional impact of it, Harry would either be trying to hide his tears, or Ron would be just this is uncomfortable, or whatever.
Trying to move it along.
Yeah, and I don't think that he would give Harry the room to process his emotions the way Hermione can.
I agree. I have nothing to add. So Harry and Hermione then put their arms around each other mm-hmm. and begin to leave the graveyard.
Yeah.
So this chapter starts with such an awkward dynamic between the two of them, and then it ends with basically them embracing and moving forward.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting way to start and end this chapter.
It's bittersweet, I think, because it's you don't want to see Harry in tears. You don't want to see them in a graveyard on Christmas. But mm-hmm. at the same time, it's just you've finally been reunited.
I think, I get so... I've gotten so emotional with the last couple of chapters, because obviously I got fairly heated with Ron exiting the tent. And here you find yourself just overwhelmed with empathy for Harry in this situation. Mm-hmm. And I do remember reading the Godric's Hollow specifically, not maybe so much the tent and the traveling part of it, but the Godric's Hollow part of this chapter I do remember reading quite often after I got the book the first time.
Yeah.
Of just trying to let it, like him trying to soak in the memorial, and him trying to soak in the gravestones. You're trying to soak this all in.
Yeah.
And just trying to absorb it.
Yeah.
But
it's very well done.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode and you've been able to absorb everything that we've talked about. Again, please interact with us by leaving comments on all of our socials, which you can find at HogwartsAPod. Also, if you're looking up our socials or you're following us on socials, that's where we will indicate, hey, we're moving to Blue Sky. Hey, we're moving to Threads. Hey, we're moving to something else. So keep a look.
Once we get some time, we'll do that.
Yeah, once we get a little bit into the new year here, we will make those moves as necessary. But we hope you're enjoying what we're putting out there. We hope you've enjoyed our debates with each other and with you, the listeners, as you've had some interesting takes on my interesting takes. So that's awesome. I really appreciate all that interaction. It's great. Participate in the polls because I also really enjoy seeing all of those results. Yeah. So we will end it here, and we will be back next week with Chapter 17. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to Hogwarts, a podcast. If you like what you've heard, please click the subscribe button on your preferred podcasting app and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Hogwarts a Pod.